All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Isaiah here with the Mental Health Podcast. We have an illustrious guest here with us today. We have Dr. Mays, PhD. Get it right, licensed independent social worker with us here today. How are you doing, my good sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for allowing me to come on to your show and allow me to share my thoughts and my knowledge and all of the little different parts of my expertise.
Thank you so much. That's what we're here for. And it's been a while. So if y'all didn't know, this podcast is about men's mental health, hyper focused on the Black man in America. And so for we've spoken before, and from what I'm privy to, your I want you to say your niche, but your knowledge base and what you've been working on for majority of your time in this profession is with young children. Um, so licensed independent social worker. And so for some that I've spoken to a social worker, but there's so many titles as you know. Once you get to the field, it's all about those letters at the end of the name. So let people know exactly what a licensed independent social worker. Let's go basic. What it is and what exactly you tackle rather than a regular psychologist or LMFT.
Great. March is a social work month. So this is a perfect time to talk about what social work is and what it isn't. And I love that.
Ooh,
And plus I have a PhD in social work, so I think that's even better.
talk to him.
Social work is a long-standing tradition of helping and inserting themselves into helping communities, right? And historically, social work starts, they say, with like social welfare has always been a part of every major social system and social civilization. And that is what kind of social work bases itself off of mutual aid. So in the social work history and background, they talk about Jane Addams and the whole house. But I'm a Black African-centered social worker, and we talk
Mm.
about African-centered in social welfare has been a part of African society since the beginning of humanity, and even since the unfortunate transatlantic slave trade, enslavement, Maafa, however you want to describe it and label it, that we created mutual aid societies. We created our own schools. We created our own fraternal organizations, our own sororities, our own churches. We had our own community-based organizations, and that community and mutual aid has been a part of the Black tradition, whether it's the part of the Black tradition in the Americas, the continent of Africa, the Caribbean, and South America. Black
Mhm.
people have been helping and serving within their own communities since before time, since white investment and white disruption of Black society through colonialism and slavery and the human trafficking trade of human bodies, and to present day through the civil rights movement and our current fight for social and civil liberties. So that gives the background about social welfare and what social work is from a Black perspective and from an African-centered perspective. Now, in terms of what social work does and what it looks like today,
Hey.
and what it looks like today is and I want to say I have to define things by what they're not. So
Mm.
psychologists tend to their highest level of their degree is testing, right? They do a lot of testing to test for mental health disorders. They test for autism, ADHD, and other psychological impairments.
Mm-hmm.
LMFT, licensed marriage family therapists, they focus on marriage and family. Their focus is on when you become married, you're creating a family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that even if you don't have children, you're still considered a family, and those dynamics and relationship and family building and family structure. Social work looks at the person. It's a theory, it's a perspective in social work called the person in the environment. And social work, you look at the micro, the meso, and the macro. So you're looking at all the different levels and layers that impact a person and the person's environment. And you try to support that person towards optimal functioning and optional well-being through the different levels of the micro, the meso, and the macro. And that's what social work does. And you see that in the school setting, you see that in the hospital setting, You see that in traditional child welfare, which is CPS social workers. You see that in mental health work. You see that in various, that's just some of the main ones in traditional case management work, working with the elderly, working with men populations in particular who are a little who could be more vulnerable at times, or in working with child and adolescent and children and families.
Hmm. That's what I like. I like to. That's the where this podcast is based off. That's why I only interview. A lot of people hit me up and they're like, they want to be on the podcast. I'm like, this ain't that, and I try to do it respectfully. It's like this podcast is for the professionals to give out facts. My industry, I run the tech industry, so it's all about my life is centered around facts. Either is or isn't, zeros and ones. Like, what's the statistic? Thank you so much for that. I gotta say thank you for divulging that.
Yeah.
Now, before we do get into the nitty gritty, like you said, it's SW month, and so I want you to get your stuff off. So you told me about an award that you got. There's an council award that you got for your work in this space. Let the people know what's that for and why'd you get it.
So I was finishing my PhD in the last 2 years of my PhD. I received the Council on Social Work Education Minority Fellowship Award. It's one of the highest, considered one of the highest award in social work education for students. I was a fellow for the last 2 years of my doctoral journey. That's a really prestigious award, and yes, I am a recipient of that award. Yes, I am. So I'm an award fellow. I'm a fellowship award-winning PhD, licensed independent clinical social
That means the hourly rate he's giving people is not average. Whatever the state is prescribing for the basic, I don't think when you contact Dr. Mays, it's gonna be the same. Even probably not even the same world.
Today's price is not yesterday's price.
Listen, they've been telling us to get these papers and these awards. Like, if I'm gonna get it, y'all better listen. Do all this hard work for nothing. But anyway, appreciate you. All right, now to the nitty gritty. While we're here, so how many? What's your client? And I know I'm privy to. I just can't divulge. But how much of your clientele makes it seem like you're like a vendor or something? But how many of your clients is children versus adults?
I see. This is the social work perspective. A social worker will always say that whenever you're working with a child or adolescent, you're working with their families. You're not working, so you're not working outside of that. So yes, the child or the adolescent is my client, absolutely, but I'm working with the entire family.
Yep, you got to work with the nature versus nurture. They're the child. They're kind of ignorant to a certain degree. So it's about okay, what's happening.
Yeah.
So
But all of the people I primarily serve are children and adolescents. Everyone is child and adolescent.
Okay.
So I'm a child and adolescent social work therapist.
Good. Okay. Now, so let's see. Like I said, this is hyper focused for mainly Black males. So I'm pretty sure you work with a couple, if not majority.
Majority of my career, absolutely yes.
I like it. I love it. So starting from there. So again, I've said it before. This podcast is a product of post Mr. Floyd's assassination. And so I looked at that and said, for some odd reason, I looked at that and said, let's look at us. What's our story? How we were brought here, how we were raised. What are some of the iniquities that we need to either work on and heal and change, maybe even our behavior, definitely our behavior, to not put us in that position. And from when I started with therapy, most therapists, it all starts from home and it all starts with your upbringing, which nature versus nurture, how you're brought up and your proximity. What was your ecosystem, so to speak?
Macro, meso systems.
So starting with that, for you know what? Even if you can go back or if you can't, starting with the first session with young African American children, what are the first, and no one wants to differentiate. I believe in equality. I believe in equity more than equality too, but I believe in both of those things. But what are some of the stark differences when you're trying to approach an African American child versus any other, even POC? I'm talking strictly just us, ADOS, a descendant of Africans that were enslaved, not slaves, or Africans versus any other race? When you meet them at first, what's some stark differences where I'm gonna have to tag this versus this Anglo-Saxon descendant child or Indian child?
Mm, mm. So this is an interesting thing. So when I'm working with Black people and Black families, I believe that the energy your spirit and your energy speaks before you come into the room. So the first thing I try to, and I do this across the board. So and I hear exactly what you're saying, but I do my best to acknowledge that a person's full presence.
Mm,
Like hello, how are you? Like I greet, like it's in the greeting and how you greet people. And that is a level of disarming people to people to feel relaxed and comfortable. So it's how you speak, it's how you greet, it's the tone, it's subtle nuances. Doing therapy, especially at COVID, I was saying this to my colleagues. I said, I have my ear is so different. I hear things so completely different because you had to do telehealth and you have to do video telehealth and you're not there physically. So the
mm,
attunement in your way you're listening and you're hearing people is so different. And that is the big that is instant. That is literally from the moment you're walking out to greet a person from the waiting room and you're retrieving them to go back into the room. It's how you speak, it's how you communicate, how you enunciate, it is how you energetically show up, which how do you set your intentions? I think that's important. And children pick up on that instantly.
mm.
They pick up on that instantly. So if you coming in, I don't want to be here. Even if you don't want it, you got to shift your energy. So I think it is you as the provider, how you approach people and how you honor people when you first utter their name.
Hmm.
It's,
So,
it's so simple, it's so basic, and it's so human, but it's something that I don't know, and I can't speak for others. I don't just one thing I don't like to do. I don't like to talk. I try not to talk in absolutes. See, I almost said absolute there.
yeah.
I try not to talk in absolutes, and I try not to speak for other people and really center. This is my experience. This is what I believe, and not trying to make generalized statements for other things that I can't speak on.
I was gonna say that. I say that all the time. I try not to speak in absolutes and generalities. Like I don't know much of. I know something. I know enough, but you can always speak to your experience. Okay, so it's
Mhm.
kind of a your approach is casting the net, and then once you get into the nitty gritty, you can specify based on what the child and that family may need.
Bec- I have a friend of mine, and I like to quote Black women because Black women are brilliant. Notice, but she would often says that the relationship is the intervention. Relationship
Mm,
is the intervention, and so and you're talking about Black men and young Black boys and Black teens and adolescents. It the stuff that we learn in school is useful and it's good, but culturally and socially that's not how we are social we're not, that's not how we brought up, that's not how we train, that's just not what is done. So you have to reframe it and repackage it that it may that I don't want to say on their level as if they're beneath, but I you meet them where they are and you give them what so that they can digest it for
mm,
them, because it's not so much what I think you need, it is what you tell me that you need and how can I be a service and support to you. That's the hierarchy in the African centered perspective, in the African centered social work realm. How that comes off. It is not. I can be the content expert, yes, but you are the expert in your life, and you are the person to direct
mm,
and teach me. So when I work with children and adolescents, I let them know that this is the space that you create. Yes, we are in a shared space, but you direct and you guide me, and it's a way of empowerment that often doesn't
mm,
happen with youth, particularly with Black youth.
mm. Okay. The next question that popped into my head is what? So the thing about the black boy, the black male child, is there's this, and with most children, but for every reason, what anybody believes about him, Dr. Umar Johnson, he did studies and watched the studies and case studies about the rampant uh, shoving of young black boys into the what's the official name? What's the official class? Special education program, and they were only there due to ADHD. And he goes to say, and this is what I believe: like you have an 8-year-old child, only been alive 8 years. He's a bundle. He or she, they're both a bundle of energy. They're just gonna be lively. And then look at their diet, and most inner city families that come don't have the access to the proper, correct dieting system, exercise system, food deserts all over these lower income neighborhoods. They're probably not properly, not to their own detriment, but not properly nutrition, giving nutrition to the child, and you send them to school. They're probably hyped up on sugar or whatever, so they're gonna be hyper. They're children. They're 8 years old. Have you either followed or heard about or seen these studies about? There's a stark difference in numbers of young black boys being pushed into these programs just because they think they're just like they're rambunctious like any other kid though.
I mean, I am not familiar with all of the various studies that examine those numbers, but I do know that there is a there's a hyper representation of young black children, both male and female, in special education programs. That has been a consistent fact since I want to say what the 90s. That's been like over a 30-40 year conversation
So
regarding the hypervisualization of children with ADHD in special education programs. And that is a very, mm, that whole topic regarding special education and children and who gets diagnosed and classifications, that's a whole nother dynamic. And I'm going to say this, that we say, oh, especially with children, what's going on with the child? What's going on with the child? The child has this. And it's all
mm,
of the outside environmental factors that are going on. That's often what we tend to look at. That's often what we tend to focus on, which is not often, which can sometimes not be incorrect. It just with what it is, what it is. Well, we never stop to think about how is the structure of school contributing to that problem.
mm,
We never investigate how was the school structure, how was the school environment, and what is happening in that environment. Like not the child, right? How and what is happening with the school and the socialization of school that can exacerbate what you're saying, what you are seeing in classrooms. That's my thought process about that.
when you said you don't have to say nothing, you don't have to retort, you don't have to reply. When you said that last excerpt, that last exchange, the first thing I thought was there are a lot of people saying segregation was the worst thing that could happen to us. And my thought was, would these black kids do better at all black schools, black charter schools, magnet schools? But that may be a little not disheartening, but a little separatism. I'm not gonna go there. But then my next thought was, so when these young black boys, what is the common denominator? What's the common issue for the young black boys that come to you, even black girls too, but mainly black boys? What's the hate saying issue? But what are they trying to figure out? What are they trying to help this child with?
Usually, um, I see a lot of it's really depressed. So I'm gonna say it's depression. It's
Hmm.
depression, but it's not depression in the way just like race is a social construct, right? That is a theoretical belief. Some people don't believe that theoretical belief, but there's various theories that race is a construct, it's a social construct. It is made up and is created. So just so if race is created, then the experiences of Black youth and Black people is socially constructed as well, which means that the way you process your own thoughts and feelings and emotions are too socially constructed, which in lay regular people terms, I I respond based off what is socially acceptable.
Hmm.
I don't have access to that's racism. Racism says that I'm less than, right?
Mm-hmm.
Racism is based on a hierarchy, social hierarchy, that whiteness and white supremacy is supreme and that blackness is not, right? And that is less than, and that not only is it less than, that it needs, deserves, and desires to be subjugated and oppressed.
Factual.
That right? And so then that means that for a person in their mental health and in their emotions and in their feelings and how they live and see the world, that they're not allowed, deserving, or privileged to have the full wide range of their emotional experiences, which then translates for Black children and Black youth is that when they're feeling sad or hurt, that society says that no, you need to be like this. You should look like act like this. And so their sadness and their pain or their depression, which I often see a lot, comes out in anger, comes out in rage, comes
Mm.
out in hyperactivity because it's socially accept. It's within boxes, and that speaks to patriarchy.
I was about to say they could say, "Oh, there's a lot of nothing against the mothers, love y'all, but there's a lot of parents in general too. It's acceptable for men to be like, oh, he's just a boy. What does that mean? He's just being a boy. He's just rambunctious. He's just gonna, fight. That's what boys do. And it's like, nah, they should probably be a little more civil. They could have a little spats, would be like, this is my toy, but they fighting and yelling at in kindergarten. I don't know. You know what I mean? Um,
Because that's what boys do, right? It's the arching theme of patriarchy.
mhm.
Patriarchy is a form of oppression, right? And it oppresses women the most, but it also impacts and harms boys. So the like you said, they're just like you said, they just boys. Or I mean, I was at the pool. This is last summer. I was at the pool. The boys they were playing, and something happened. And the boy, I think, got him. I say emotional. I think he might have started crying. Toughen up. Why are you crying? I'm like, they're playing. He didn't like something. It's normal. He's human. He's 7.
That's what I be trying to.
Right. And it was jarring. And like I said, the more I do work with youth, I'm like, yeah, I really don't want children to have their feelings and emotions. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, it's actually really good to have children cry because they learn how to self-regulate their own feelings and emotions.
Mhm. My therapist, my therapist is like, let the emotion happen. Think about it, act later. So when that's coming out and divulge, it's like in the most simplest terms. And I hear a lot of black men say they just can't. And I used to say that too. Like, I just can't. You can. It's just there's so much a blockage of trauma built up and you're not used to it. Your brain just doesn't click for it to cry. You try to logic its way out. There's a statement that I wrote that I typed that like men revert to logic in order to escape emotion. And that's a
Yeah.
part of the patriarchy. Like
Mhm.
I had it told to me before. My uncle was in the army for forever, and we were outside playing with my cousins, and my cousin got hurt somehow. I used to be hard headed. I never really cried, but he started crying for something. My uncle like, boy, come here, and he said it in a tone that was just like, he's like 3 feet tall, and he's just like, what you crying for? He did this and that. Well, ain't no reason to cry. There is a reason to cry. Like you said, he got his feelings hurt, but it's a nat. Why I don't know, not to get too philosophical or existential, but I'm not. Sometimes I don't understand how it's a human trait. If you weren't if it was a necessity for a human being to cry, we probably wouldn't be capable of doing it. That's how it come to my mind.
Oh, absolutely. You're we are designed to cry. We're designed to have feelings. We're designed to feel. Um, we're designed to have our emotions. And I often say especially when men do that to other men,
Mhm.
and all they're doing is repeating suppression. And then
Mm.
sometimes that's all you're doing. And some of and it's variety of different reasons. This is what I think boys should be doing. This is what I was done to me. And
Mm.
for some people, and this is more on a subconscious level, I didn't have this freedom when I was a child. And so this freedom of you scares me.
Mm.
And so that often happens when we see youth who go against social norms. It's really anger from adults. I didn't have this feeling when I was a child. And so you get that's and that plays out. So it plays out in therapy oftentimes with parents not understanding. I'm gonna say this, and I'm glad that you asked me about the boys when I see in therapy. As much as the young boys may not always have the words and the language to express what they think and feel, but they're very much in tune with what's going on.
Mm,
They don't know how to manage it. They don't know how to express it, but they are very comfortable with crying. They cry in session. They they are definitely able to um express themselves and share in ways that that we wouldn't think. The youth of today are very it's not the youth of old. They are definitely shifting the way that they see
mm.
um social. Some stuff is still there, right? It's still I mean, I it is there, but in terms of for their own health, they don't want to live like that and they don't like that.
Yeah, I would give so much credit to, especially during the Black Lives Movement, but in general to Gen Z. Like I was a '90s baby. I was born in '92, so I remember the mid to late '90s pretty. It sticks with me. It's pretty what's it, vivid. And some of the stuff that I'm still learning. Therapy helped me learn some of the stuff that even post being therapized, I look and I'm like, it's not that bad. It's not that serious. But then someone who's like 20 or 21 will give off a whole spiel and they're like, nah, you're actually helping exasperate this, helping exasperate that. And I'm like, all right, let me get beside myself and understand there's a new society too. Intelligent, the how you what's the saying? You can gauge human intelligence by adaptability. How can a human being adapt? That lets you know whether or not they're intelligent. That's an old like biology saying, I think. And so I think I'm pretty smart. So let me be elastic and malleable in my thinking and be like, all right, maybe so. But all right, back to these black boys. So what I'm hearing is I had a psychologist on my last episode. I can't remember if he explained what EQ is, but a lot of what you're saying there's a lack of EQ and men just in general due prior to the patriarchy, but and hyper focused in black men. What is you don't have to get the book definition. If you could do it all back, that'd be great. But what is emotional intelligence or mental emotional EQ to you? Let's start there and then go to where's the lacking you see from black men and then black boys.
Um, is really emotional intelligence in really simple ways is knowing that you have feelings and that they exist, and that other people have feelings and they exist, and that you allow yourself to have your feelings and you allow other people to have your feelings, and you try not to take it personal. And if you do
Mm,
take it personal, you recognize that it's okay and you try to release it. That's as
mm,
simple as that. Simple. I have to be simple. I try not to talk in ways that confuse people. I think that as a professional, as a healthcare professional, that you should talk in ways that regular people, and I say regular, I mean everyday people, can understand and communicate and share with other people. I always tell my families that if communicating something to you, you should be able to tell your relatives and your loved ones what I said to
uh,
you, and
yeah,
and it's not confusing. Like you don't have to have my credentials to understand what I'm talking about.
big facts. So
Big
where
facts.
in those children, those little black boys, there's obviously a stoppage in where they're either able one or two things to learn EQ and then be able to express their emotions. I think we already talked about the stoppages like the patriarchy.
Patriarchy,
So in
patriarchy,
those,
patriarchy and racism, right? Patriarchy and racism that impacts Black children. That's what it for Black boys in particular.
hmm,
Patriarchy, the intersection of patriarchy um,
the
and
racism.
racism for how it impacts Black boys. Patriarchy kills men, and patriarchy and racism kills Black men.
Mm. So when my thought is that when you're having these, like you said, you do basically it's really families. It's hyper focused on the child, but it's families. Probably a lot of free therapy or free information that you're giving to the parents because they gotta basically do the work after a child really at 8 years old. Therapy is about doing the work. So if you take a child, they're not worried about doing the work and they just did in therapy. They want to go watch these cartoons. So are the parents in the sessions or is it like you have a call with the parents like PTO, like a parent teacher?
Well, you know what? I'm really, really glad that you said that, right? Because um, so much uh, people, and this happens, and it's no fault to parents at all. I genuinely believe people do the best that they can with what they have,
Mhm.
and the fact that people trust their children to come to me
Hmm.
onto any other child, and those who are really doing the work and are really invested in the overall health and well-being of people and breaking down of social barriers and social stigmas through therapy, I'm all for it. So um sometimes they're there, right? And so those are called like joint parent child sessions, that's what they're called.
Hmm.
And sometimes they're just a child. It's considered an individual one-on-one session. Children's language is play, so a lot of it is play interaction. Again, the intervention for a lot of children is the relationship, is healthy relationship building, and teaching children that they can have healthy relationships with with their peers and with adults, and that they can replicate that in other areas of their life. That's what child therapy really is. That's really what it is. I can have healthy relationships. I can learn how to share and express myself in a place where I don't feel judged. I'm not shut down, and I am not told what to do.
So,
Completely different way. And and it's funny because when I have parent sessions and the parent like, you should do, I say, no, 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 no. I said parent, I said mom or dad, I said or grandma, granddad, or auntie, uncle, or godmom, or whoever is in the room, and I said, hey, I said, I understand that you want your child to engage and you want your child to say these things or talk. I said, but if they don't want to speak, they don't have to speak. I said, you allow them their own process. I said, I understand you may, I said, now I tell them, I said, look, I don't want to step on nobody's toes, so don't
yeah,
try to tussle with me.
dynamic in the room.
Right, but again, it's how you communicate, it's how you build the relationship, and and that a relationship building with people. So when you're able to communicate that, and sometimes I have to do it sooner in a set in a therapy relationship than later, but it just happens. I mean, it just you're a parent. Didn't I tell you to talk? Didn't I tell you what parents do?
Yeah.
Right? They give you directives. That's what I so. That's normal. It's not abnormal for a parent to kind of do that, but that's why I try to I stagger a parent, especially if there's older, like if it's a teen or later early to late adolescence. I monitor that because teen are different. With the younger children, it's definitely different. They may not feel comfortable talking about themselves,
Hmm.
so they come into the session more. They may come at the beginning or come at the end, or they might say the whole time. And you do that relationship building, and there's so much you can teach um, in a session regarding with children with play. So much comes out in play.
I was okay. I wanted to get into your. There's tactics like right now. Me and my therapist doing CBT. He wants to focus on that. But after I want you not detail your process so people like can either figure it out or take it
No,
or whatever.
no, they can. Please, no, it's fine.
So,
But
do you have any of your own processes that you have created? And if so, what are some of the, I don't know, top three types of therapy for these children in specific that you see work and how does it play out?
so I am I I try to be very intuitive in a really simple way is very present, focused, validating. It's simple. It's so simple that it's not a process that I created. It is cultural.
Hmm.
When we're at church, we're present, we're focused, we're calling response. When we at a step show, we're focused, we're present, we're attentive, we're engaged. When we are at a family gathering, right, and we're gathered, we're focused. So it's using those cultural elements that is very present in culture and bringing that culture into the practice, right, and allowing children to call and name things. That's cultural,
Hmm.
right? What do you want to do? And again, that builds self confidence, that builds self mastery, that builds language skills, communication skills, and you have the ability to think and choose. And that allows you to have self mastery. Because oftentimes we hear people say, oh, I can't. And I say, I recognize that there's a frustration in that you're not able to do something in this moment. I said, but let's think of more positive way you shape your mind instead of saying, I can't.
Hmm.
And so working with Black youth, I try to have them, not me give them power, have them empower themselves.
Yeah.
And I just ignite that. I just ignite it within them, help them to ignite their own fire, their own flame, their own spark, so that they can continue that work on their own. So
Okay.
that's really it. So, and also, so another thing that I often do with youth, especially like I said, when I say adolescent, I'm talking 12, 13 to 17, 18,
Yeah.
right? Young adolescents to later adolescents. And I try to I incorporate a lot of them, like, and just youth overall. Like, they really, that I've seen, that I've worked with, they love anime. They love the Taro. They love a good anime show. So I have them bring in their anime. I have them bring in their art. And those who are able to verbalize more will sit and draw during session,
Mm.
or the color during session, or we play Legos, or we play Uno, and you just build the natural relationship. And it's therapeutic because it allows people to bring themselves down, to disarm, and to release. And then you start that process of exchange.
Ooh. And the way I thought about it is when they do the things that they already like subconsciously the brain will attach either healing or some pleasantry to what they do. So when they leave you, the kid will inadvertently do the work. They like when they get frustrated, they might go somewhere and draw. The brain
Yeah,
attaches that to healing.
yeah, yeah. They practice that. Or I say, okay, let's make a playlist, right?
Hmm.
Let's make a playlist. Let's make a playlist of the music that you listen to that calms you down. I'm like, all right, now NBA. I said, now look, I don't tell people what to do. I don't know if NBA young boy is brings now. If I said now I said, is this? I said, so let's be into awareness, right? This is about awareness. Now, I said, now, does this song about shooting and killing speak calm? Is this calm? Now, you may like the beat, and that's fine, right? Right? A song, some may have a slow mellow beat in it. That mellows what I said, but now is what the person is saying calm. I use, for examples, there's Mariah Carey and Bone Thugs and Harmony Breakdown. I love that song. That song is a really sad song. Mariah, the song that they talk about being sad and depressed about a breakup. That is not a common relaxed song, but yet
Hmm.
I have enough self-awareness and attunement to different. I love the song. The song invokes positive memories for me.
Ah.
It's different. It's so, yes, the song content may not be that, but I have enough maturity, awareness that I can do that, and then that impact me in that capacity, right?
Hmm.
um, Children and youth don't always have that. So I said,
Yeah.
look, I ain't trying to take away you liking the song. Not at all. I was trying to let's try to find songs that are a little more calming and overall, so that you, because right now your brain ain't able to do all that, and it's okay. It's not able to do that in this moment. It will be, and you
Yeah.
will. It's going to learn how to do so. We got to take it step by step, piece by piece, and that's kind of, I do stuff like that. Or okay, let's watch a clip of this show, right? And that's practicing the skill of looking at something, projecting, because I always say projection is one of the first things we learn as young people, and also for Black youth and Black children, we're often projected on. So,
Yeah.
right. So let's watch this clip. Watch this clip of this show, or this cartoon, and we watch this clip and talk about what you see, and talk about the dialogue, or talk about the behavior, and right. And it's because I it's supposed to be fun, right? It's
Yeah.
about breathing life. It's not supposed to be, tell me, what are your feelings? No, it's interactive. You're children, right?
Yeah.
And you want them engaged, and show me your painting, show me your picture, show me things that you feel like that you've done, right? If they're creative and really invoking their person, right? So you do, and so I say that to say, from the moment that I greet you, I am calling and naming who you are, and I
Mhm.
want you to continue that process for yourself.
Okay. Another thought when you said go back to the parents. I'm thinking that sometimes you would either inadvertently or unconsciously kind of like when in this, if they're in a session with the child, kind of like therapizing the parents through the child. Like you're
Yeah.
teaching the child, but while they're there, you're trying to have the parents hone in on all right, this is something you actually need to be doing. I'm actually telling this is something you need to be doing.
Modeling behavior. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how
With
does
the
that?
younger
How do you
kids,
practice that and execute that?
you invite we play the game together. We do it
Mm.
together. Or I do the same activity with the parent by themselves.
I
Like,
was
all
just
right,
thinking, I want my therapist. That sounds fun. Like that's what my therapist does, and I'm like, I can do. I've been it's 3 years, and I could do that. But I would like for me and my therapist to like, I don't know, play spades with someone else, or you know what I'm saying. But go ahead.
yeah, like we can play this card game, and that's and or I have so like I have Mario Uno, and I'm playing, and I play Uno, and I'm doing that work, right? And like and that and it's having the parents come a part of that process. And it's I want to go back to this comment that you made about parents like here's my child, fix my child,
Mm.
and that's not and it's and again, and I say this about for our black families and all families overall that I have worked with, that is the consensus that people say, oh, parents are saying, and I want to be clear, it's not just a black thing. It's not just
Mm.
like, oh, black families are like, here my no, that is a family thing that
Yeah.
spans generations, that spans race, that spans or gender composition. It's a human thing. I'm stressed out. I'm tired. Here's my child. Do what to do with this child to get on my nerves.
Mm.
That's a human thing.
Yeah.
And I say that we start up here, and then working with black families that look, we're frustrated, we're tired, and getting them invested into that process. And I honestly, and I'm gonna give praise and additional praise and credence to the parents. Um, I'm 30, 32. My parents are in their mid to late 60s. I had older parents. Um, my parents were taking me to therapy when I was sad and when I was down. They are immensely proud that I'm a child and adolescent therapist, and they're
Mm.
immensely celebratory that I do it. They speak about it, they praise it, even before I got the PhD. They love what I do. They don't always necessarily always understood it. And my parents are K through 12 educators, retired educators,
Oh.
but they appreciate and respect what I've done. And more so now as I've grown and matured, they are even more praising and more celebratory. My mother, man, my child a therapist, your child got problems, they can mom, you can't you can't give away my services for free.
Right.
But it's the genuine my child is pouring into to other people.
Mm-hmm.
I say that to say that more than not, the parents who bring their children to me for therapy are parents who say, look, I'm open and new to this. I want my child to be open and new to this, and I want to work with them, and I'm encouraging this. So I want to be clear. The families that I have worked with are encouraging of that behavior. They may not always know how to navigate that, right? Or know what to always quote do, but they're in support and in encouraging of that. Even if they are like, my child's getting on my darn nerves. Here's my child. So they're still, I don't know. It's more so I don't know what to do. I'm confused what to do. I'm burnt out. I'm tired. I'm stressed. I got to do all these other
Mm.
responsibilities. So here. You figure this thing out, and you let me know what I could or should or wouldn't do. And so that happens as well too.
Okay. So don't want to give up your whole blueprint, but I want to give. I want you to give some tidbits of how a parent could manage the emotions of their child in a therapeutic way at home, and then I want to jump to
Man is
specific.
bad.
Yeah. I'm
That's
on.
I know that sounds so simple. I often tell parents, "Are you in therapy? Do you have your own therapist?" Because I want you to process how you were parented, right? And am I
Circle.
repeating what was done with me, or am I
Right.
doing something different? Or my child is communicating and expressing. I often tell parents this all the time. I said, "Your child is 50% you,
Mm.
your child. That is 50% you, 50% you." So oftentimes what parents happens is they're activated from their own childhood of stuff,
Mm.
and they're responding in ways and they're frustrated because they can't their child is requesting what they requested, or they weren't vocalized, and it's just those dynamics are often generational dynamics are often at play.
I was about to say they don't have, and that's another thing that is probably disheartening to a parent. Like, I made this child, and I don't. Of course, I realized my parents, they were just people trying to figure it out. It's the weirdest thing to be an adult and be like,
Parents is
these
trying to.
people, okay, these people raised me. All due respect to my mom and my dad, just so to speak, he did what he had to do. He did what he did. But it's just like to realize, like, oh, y'all were just really kids and y'all just had us and y'all figured it out. Like,
Figure it out, and being an in tune parent to what your child's needs are, and conscious of that, and modeling like that. What, like, I mean, that's a very new thing. Rephrase, it's not new, it's more visible. It's always been there, and people have always practiced it, and always, but those parents were called weird and strange, and they let their kids do anything. They don't,
yeah.
and they not let they kids run around the room. They let they kids, they ain't yelling at them, they ain't barking at them. And I'm like, and it's like, no, but you didn't like that. And they're kids. Like, it ain't 18 years old jumping off, climbing on tables, right? Like, they're like, if a 2-year-olds do, they're exploring. Things are new to them. They're new to the world. They're
Yeah.
exploring. And um yeah, and I just people are just trying to more, and that again, that's across the spectrum. People is trying to figure it out, and navigate, and so my uh um some, I don't call it advice, but a word of wisdom for families and for parents, especially of young children and even the older children. You have to allow yourself to feel.
Hmm.
You have to give yourself permission to feel, and you have to be and before you even do all of that, you got to be willing and want to make a change. That
Hmm.
you have to be willing and want to make. You can allow yourself to feel all the feelings from here to California, and if you're not willing to make a change with it, all you're gonna do is just be a really irritated person.
Yeah. Just repeating a cycle. That's, I mean, ugh. Okay, so our next thought is, even with those parents, that's one
Mhm.
tidbit to the parents. I think that should be memorized or written down. But I want to go to specific to, I don't want to go into, yeah, we're not doing it. But let's say for the married parents, or even the couples who co-parent that are doing it well, that come to you. You have this black boy, you're doing therapy while the black father is there. I want to know, ask this right. F it. I want to know. I think you would say patriarchy is the thing, but I think us black men is affected by it differently, and we are projecting it in a different way. But
Yeah.
what's the stoppage or the blockage that you see that a black male parent trying to raise his son is creating these? I hate to say issues, but the issues with
Or,
that young black boy.
or we can say um challenge. We can just say challenges. What are the areas of challenge? Areas
Yeah,
for potential evolution or growth.
growth.
Areas for growth, right?
Mhm.
Um, creating these areas of growth, needed growth.
Mhm.
Um, right. So much of what a lot of black parenting, this is gonna get the nitty gritty. A lot of black parenting is based in, unfortunately, fear and protection.
Hmm.
Right? A lot of black parenting is based in fear. Don't do that. Don't go here. You're gonna get shot. You're gonna get killed. Like,
Yeah.
you gonna get arrested. You got to do this. You got to do. A lot of it. Even from kindergarten, walk in a straight line. Don't do what you're told. Like, all this. Do what you're told. Do what you're told. Do it is all of this social conformity, social expectation. Do as you're told, and then we see it in our children and our schools really, really early on, and our homes really, really early on. And so much of it is based off of fear, and it is based off of protection, because what happens to you as a black person, as a black child, as a black boy, when you don't do as you told,
Hmm.
right? And so, for parents who have lived a little bit of life, they're trying to, and people who, and I want to make a, people who really don't want their children to be hurt. Most people don't want their children hurt and harmed.
Mm-hmm.
The trashiest of parents don't want their children hurt and harmed. They don't. And I working in child welfare. I worked in CPS, and even the parents that did hurt and harm their kids didn't want to hurt and harm their kids. That wasn't. There's some people who do, right? Right. But for the most part, most people don't want to hurt and harm their children. They
So
do it because they don't know anything else to do, right?
I was about to say, do you kind of like, not like you said, you don't tell, but are you kind of like unconsciously find a way to get any parent, let's just go to any parent, to like not move away, but kind of like don't have to get physical with the discipline. Here's this, that, and the third.
And it's more so, how do you allow this child to be, how are you managing your own feelings and expectations with your child? Right? Because how do you expect, how are you expecting your 8-year-old, your 10-year-old, your 12, 13-year-old to have all of these skills of managing and managing their feelings and expectations and coping skills, and you ain't doing it?
I was about to say, you can't.
You don't want to. You're not trying to do it. It's, I want this done so that my life is easier, versus what is the health benefit of the overall family. And shifting that perspective and that dynamic with families that is probably the hardest one, right? Because oftentimes people come to you because the way that I'm functioning is stopping me from living life. And that, if living life is just waking up, going to work, going to school, and coming home and eating, whatever is going on is making that even a really tough, stressed out process. My child needs some support so we can have a simple process, not what is the health and well-being of the family. And that goes back to what I said earlier. That is an example of, right, what racism is suppression, oppression. You deserve, you don't have the freedom and flexibility to live, to have challenges. Everything has to be a certain way.
Okay.
Right, and that's how that oppression plays out for Black families, as we're trying to navigate and get therapy. And look, we haven't even touched on what happens when your child actually has a serious mental health diagnosis,
Yeah, or disability.
or a disability, or they've encountered significant trauma. They encountered significant ongoing trauma. They encountered significant displacement and movement. We haven't even what that looks like. What that looks like.
And I should have prefaced this to the parents. This is to be helpful. Like I said, y'all, we are all just trying to figure it out. Kids or not, but even people with children, we're all trying to figure it out. This is the point of this, to give help, and hopefully you hear some of these tidbits and you're writing it down to figure out how to help heal and elevate your process, your parenting process, and eventually the family. But
it's hard. I wanted this, and it's just hard. It is hard. Doing this is hard. Doing the work is hard. Working, raising and managing children is hard, and it's a very strenuous, tedious responsibility. That's not easy. So, my hat goes off to the parents that are invested, that are working hard, even the ones that ain't investing and working hard. They're just trying to figure the crap out themselves, right?
yeah,
They need love. They need help, and they need love the community. They need communal love and support too. You may be frustrated and tired of their shenanigans, but they still need it. And so, um, yeah, they need it.
thank you all. Peace and love to the parents, and thank y'all for what y'all do. We appreciate it. But moving on, we still gonna try to give out this help. Okay. And so, man, I had a great question. What was I gonna ask? Oh, there are a couple of words. So this is something I'm struggling with too. I don't know. I feel I'm eerie. I'm not gonna speak on it, but I kind of have a aversion to this whole influencer, guru, speaker movement, and I don't want to talk about them. But um, there are some words that are being kind of overused, and people are using them in either the wrong context, or they don't even know the definition is using it. And you said something about trauma. So to give out from a professional who works within healing trauma, you let people know what is trauma. And if you know, how does it or could it affect the human brain?
Oh, that's a really loaded question. That,
Ah,
that's the part. No, not in a bad way. It's just like it can affect the brain. I'm gonna start off with is trauma. Trauma is hmm, trauma is an event that changes your hmm. Trauma is an event that shifts your position and your footing in your position. Negative,
hmm,
in a really simple way. So for some people, I fell off my bike, right? Kids fall off the bike all the time. All right, cool. If I got hit by a car and I was severely injured and I was in the hospital for 6 months as a kid, that's different than falling off of a bike, right? That's traumatic.
mm,
Completely who you were before that bike hit or who that before that car hit is very different than who you are after. Momentary in an
instant.
instant versus he fell off the bike. It might you might now not saying that falling now if you have a if you keep falling off the bike and you fell down the bike and you broke your legs,
Hmm.
right? Versus
Yeah.
I just grabbed my knee, right? I use the physical to kind of unfortunately trauma, and particularly trauma from mental health and the mental health world. If you can't see it, it didn't happen.
I was about to say, because I was gonna say usually in the home with parents that are moving probably away from the physical, you could traumatize someone off of speech. If you verbally abuse somebody, that could traumatize them. Just using a
Yeah.
word.
There are different types of trauma. I don't know in the interest of time. I don't believe I have the luxury of time to go through. That's a whole. That's you have to
You're
invite me
good.
back. Well, you'd have to
You're
invite
good.
me back to do a whole structured one on what trauma is and what trauma isn't, and how can it impact youth and how can it impact the brain and development and overall functioning. Because that's my actual specialty.
Mm.
hmm I'm a trauma trained clinician. I am an actual trauma trained clinician.
Dang. I didn't have that in my nose partial. Well, I did a partial start with trauma, but in from my experience, it just you get the gist of it. It's a growth stunter. That's what I would
Yeah,
consider it to be.
yeah, yeah.
Like if you see an underdeveloped man, it's like he probably had a traumatizing event or situation with someone that didn't allow that to develop. So he's holding something in because when he tries to do something, he's remembered that, oh, that's the experience. Like crying, black men who don't cry. You grow up, someone beat you for crying. Something happened to you. Why are you hit? Why are you like discipline? Let's say discipline. Why are you disciplining me? Because something happened to me and I'm crying. So there's a blockage that developed from trauma from that happening over a amount of
You
time.
can't. And I will also say trauma is also self-defined. I want to. My apology for interrupting you.
You
I
good?
want trauma is also self-defined. So what could for some people, what could be traumatizing for one person may not be traumatizing for another. Unfortunately, and there's some instances some people have had traumatic experiences and they don't register it as trauma.
Mm.
Um, which is a whole nother conversation as well. I also want to acknowledge this too, that oftentimes people say, oh, this event happened and it was trauma, right? This, I got hit by the car and that was trauma. Well, what about getting hit by the car and then going to the doctors? They're not believing that you're in pain and you had to go to physical
Ooh.
therapy and the physical therapist was rude and nasty. And then you got teased at school. You started flunking your grades, right? You see, the
Mm.
incident isn't just traumatic. It is the ongoing aftermath of your life that has this significant issue and it's last for 3 years. And you have all of these other physical health issues and challenges because you got severely hit by this car,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
That so, and your parents, all the money went to the medical bills, and your family got and all like you see how I'm saying like it is. And this one event that was out of your control that you didn't do anything that you didn't have any say so in, you didn't do anything, and it happened. Something happened to you that was completely out of your control that completely changed your life, and that is ongoing. For a lot of Black families, our trauma is intergenerational. There's
Yeah.
intergenerational trauma. There is complex trauma, and that there is chronic stress that is ongoing due to traumatic events.
Ooh, I had a thought about when you said intergenerational trauma, because that's what happens with the physical discipline. It's like when you growing up as a child, let's say if you were a slave, you saw your mom getting beaten for doing wrong, and you grow up, and that happens generationally. That
Hmm.
stems from it. It's like that's you replicating something that happened over 200 something years ago. That's the only way. That's what you see is how you discipline someone going out of line. Come on now, that's what we're doing now, and we gotta heal from that. We gotta some of that should be taught. Like you're doing something that's really a part of a structure, a system, in order to keep us oppressed. But I think we can nip the bud in that. Next thing I want to talk about is the biggest thing with Black men today is this whole masculinity conversation.
Mm.
And I've Googled it my own. Everyone else, you guys could Google and YouTube it to know the definition. But let's start with this. Is there a healthy, I want to say form or a healthy amount of masculinity for one to have specifically in the male or the boy as he's growing? Like how could where's the mitigation? How could you, because a part of that is his emotional intelligence. If you're too emotional, he probably isn't masculine. But does that make sense? What does that mean?
That's interesting. I would say says who, right? Not you, like
Yeah.
says who. Like I think that um so much of what Huey P. Newton actually said this, that much of masculinity is defined about what men do to women,
Hmm.
and that much of that is defined on what men do to women, and that if this is now this ain't my word. So this is Huey P. Newton. He writes about this, and he talks about this in the 70s and during the Black radical portion of the civil rights movement. After this is post the death of MLK, right? This is after
Mm-hmm.
1969, 68, 69, and that what a lot of what masculinity is defined about is what men do to women. And so if women shift, and if I'm talking, and in this particular part of the conversation, I mean for Black men in the Black community. So
Mm-hmm.
if Black women and Black people who are LGBTQ, if they have their own identity, and they move and they say we don't, and I'm gonna say don't need you, or this is not what we want from you, then at challenge what masculinity is for men, right? That much of
Mm.
your identity is based on what you do to people, not how you're in relationship with people.
Ooh. Because I hear it often. There's a I want to say it's nasty. There's the battle between the masculine and feminine, how masculine man should be and what it should do. And some of that, the majority, I would say 88% of it is perpetuated by the patriarchy, and then we're unfortunately grandfathered into it. Um, but there are some women who are aligned with I hate the word toxic. That's one of the overused words to toxic and trauma. But there's like they're in alignment with hyper. I could like to call it hyper masculinity. You being too stoic, you being bolded in your male pride and your male ego, and you can't do this, that, and the third. I literally saw a woman on the internet say, "I don't want my man crying too much, or he can't cry too long." And I was thinking, it's like you got a time frame for a human being's emotions. You saying you gonna give somebody 5 days to either be emotional or have their breakdown, but eventually that I get back to being a man. That don't make sense though, because what is being a man to you though? Is a man a human being to you?
So this is when I say that that is for, just like I believe that it is the duty of white people to break down racism, it is the
Mm.
duty of men to break down patriarchy. and misogyny. That's men's job. So the only way that it goes on is that we uphold it, right? So
Right.
in terms, so we talk about black boys and we talk about black families and oftentimes, you hear men will say, "I don't have a place. What am I supposed to do? They don't need me. What am I supposed to do?" Well, it is. Have you asked them what they needed, and is your or have you found a way to be a part of the process where you're not on a hierarchy?
Hmm.
Because so much of what what men do and define is based on a hierarchy and a hierarchy of need and a hierarchy and not recognizing that you're a full person, your full humanity and honoring that and honoring the different ways. And I guess the best, and this is for me, and anybody gotta accept it, anybody gotta adhere to it. This is what I think and what I feel and what I believe, and that you have to define and create your own what you call masculinity. You have to create it, and you have to be comfortable with that, and you have to say, is this it? You have to be willing and open to see it differently in ways that
Hmm.
is not harmful to not just you, but the people that you say you love and care about. And again, that calls you to be in relationship with people. um, that calls you to be in a relationship with people, and it causes you to actually have to listen and hear what people have to say and respond to it in a healthy manner. So yeah.
I was first. I don't want maybe ask it. I was like, there's from my vantage point, and I'm not dismissing anybody else's experience. There are men who don't listen to women. There are men who don't see women. Probably they don't like women. Let's keep it real. They just see them as you're someone to marry and you're someone to have a child with. Like
That's classic
activity.
objectification. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are plenty of men who do that. I've seen them. I've heard them. Unfortunately, um, what's the point I was getting to? Anyway, I was going in a roundabout way to ask you, and I'm perfectly open to hearing it. My thought is most of these social constructs are created by those of Anglo-Saxon or what's it called boot dissension, Caucasian from Europe. My thought is, let me just ask because I don't want to influence your answer.
Mhm.
Where are black men of the patriarchy? If so, where's their place in the patriarchy?
Mhm. I don't know if I have the right answer for that. Yeah, they are part of that because they're men, right? Like,
Mm.
I remember I was talking to someone about this, and I said, "This is controversial." I ain't gonna say it because then, but no, like, they absolutely are a part of it. Just because it's, I, I don't. It's not fair to say that patriarchy is only a white person's construct, or
Mm.
it's that would be erroneous because in every culture and society, women have almost been oppressed.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Ah,
there,
I'm with you.
there are exceptions, like I said, almost there are exceptions, but that has been present and consistent across
Hmm.
that that hierarchy has been present. So that's not fair to say. That's not fair.
Got you.
And that's me studying history, and that's me, a person who has studied, and that's not, and yeah, like that's just what that is. And so it's not fair to give that all to white supremacy and whiteness. Now, you can argue and say they have maximized it for their benefit, right? Right,
Mm.
and that white male patriarchy, and white male patriarchy and what that looks like and how that operates and what that looks like in American society. Um, how it's very distinct, a very distinct type of patriarchy. That is also another kind of understanding and breaking that part down. So
I that's clear. I think it's been made clear to me now. We have in our black men in our own right have either displaced or tried to put women in a place and try to keep them there and to be like, You don't have to get a job. You shouldn't get a job. Even inadvertently, when men say, "Let me take care of you," it's like, for what reason? She's a grown woman with her own brain and has the ability to work. What you should do is let her bring that forth and say, "Hey, I thought about now working," and then you go from there and have the conversation. Who are you to even try to introduce that into this relationship? I mean, so there are things that I hate. I hate the word mansplaining. I've heard women say it over, and it's true. There can be some mansplaining happening. But like I said before, to bring the point, for the men who need to learn, and for some of them that actually first, there are possible reasons that don't listen to women from your mouth to their ears. What is what? I mean, if you could break it down to one thing, but what are the things that we could help to dismantle our form of patriarchy, the black man? Like, what are some things that our women are asking for that you could mansplain or get us as men to understand these are things we need to either do or help to do to help women, black women? Let's be specific.
Um, mm, mm.
Because they need to know. They need to hear.
This gonna sound so big, but I see people see them as actual humans, and that
Mm,
like that's number one, right? That they're a full human, and that you're a full, and that you too are a full human.
mm,
That's as basic and simple as it can be. That's the start off where we can start, right? You're a human. You have feelings, you have thoughts, you have feelings and emotions, and that you can't do anything for anyone else until you have self-awareness and you want and desire healthy relationships with other people. You have to, I'm gonna keep saying that you have to want and desire it. I can tell you all the things to do and all the things you should say and or you should start, but
yeah.
you gotta want to desire, you have to have your brain that's what you want and you see it to be a benefit for your life.
Okay. I often struggle with that and trying to either advocate for mental health. I found out like in year two, I was being like just shoving food down people's throat. I was trying to get the information and make it, I wasn't making it malleable. I wasn't making it digestive. It's like, if they don't want to, who am I to like force you to eat? Like, you're a human being. You choose when to eat. You choose when to, you want to be healthy. You choose when you're going to work out. If you want to be a better human being, you're going to choose to be a better human being and figure it out. That's hard to say though, because I'm really about lately to spin. It's kind of a spin-off. I've been lately been about the macro. I've done my own micro work. I never mind. But I'm more about the macro. I see too many of us as a diaspora saying, there's a saying that all of us say all skin folk and kinfolk. And you're right. But as the macro, they're gonna have a family and their descendants are gonna be taught. So they're gonna spring off this self-destructive cycle. I'm not telling you to take whoever into the fold and like bring them under your wing and have them be a part of your family. In an instant, when something is wrong, just relay information and knowledge. Some people don't even say nothing. I've seen people say that like, "Oh, it ain't my business. That ain't this." Well, they're gonna have a son, and you're gonna have a son, and when they go to school together and they have a problem, you obviously aren't gonna connect some stuff, but there's some things that happen along the line to where like just say something. Like, I don't know. But that's going off on a tangent.
No, I hear you. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, that's about being in community relationship with other people and how you again how you want to be there.
How are we gonna like, as far as MLK days when they said overcome? It was really about community. Like, how are we to overcome when these days? These days it's all about, I hear it all the time, it's all about me, and everyone claims to be such a loner and all that crap. And I'm just like, how do we forget the basics of kindergarten? Learn how to play together. Learn how to share. The golden rule. I mean, I know it sounds lame to majority of millennials and Gen Z, but come on, man, we not gonna get nowhere. Oh,
No.
no offense. Shout out to Black Lives Matter. The movement happened, but we ain't, I don't know. We ain't get no legislation. Like, look at the Asian community. Within 12 months of something happened to someone who is the Asian community. And of course, systematically, there's other things that have happened, but they got pen to paper. They have a bill that equates to something happened to someone of Asian descent. If it goes awry, or if the court system deems it so, if it's a hate crime, you will see jail time. How long black people been doing this black power fight? I don't not seen. I have not heard. If you have, please let me know. A pen to paper bill that has happened that states if you do this to black people, it's a hate crime. You'll get jail time. I think that takes community. I think the government doesn't see us as black people. ADOS here, we're not in connection to Africa. So we don't have a power system or a banking system outside of America that if you mess with us, we say word to Africa, you got a problem. Asia definitely has that. China is big over there. America's kind of, they're not scared, but they like have their eye on China. I believe that's why that bill came fast. But we as a community need to get in connection with our brothers and sisters in Africa. We needed to strengthen some trade, get a backing, so these people know you just can't play with us here. And that starts with community, thinking of others. But anyway, tangent. That's for another day, another conversation. What else I want to get to? We talked about masculinity, talked about trauma, talked about children. Black child. Hmm. You know what? I hate to force conversation. Is there anything that I don't usually do this, but I should probably have a, I don't want to call it a segment. But is there anything about this whole conversation that you would like to relay that you think we missed? Is there something that parents should know? Black parents, let's be specific. Black parents should know about their parenting that they should be privy to.
I'm going to stress again that I want Black parents to investigate how they were parented.
Mm.
Investigate how you were parented. Did you like it? Did it help you? Not if you turned out fine, because what do you mean by turned out fine? But
Mm.
did you like it? Did it help you? Do you think it was beneficial? And think about the times when you weren't heard and you weren't seen in what you have wanted. And that is the thing that I really kind of talk with families about. What is it that you think that you wanted and need? And how are you responding to what your child is expressing their wants and needs are?
Mm. Because we trying to get to real black boy joy. Try to get these children to be happy and healed,
And
healthy, grow
the
up.
way to do that is creating the home, creating and maintaining a home environment where they feel safe.
Mm.
One of the things I could share this. My mother used to always my mother used to get really frustrated when I would say as a young kid or teen adolescent that I was great or that I was powerful. Or there's not, and by no means, shape, form, or fashion, my mother didn't want me to acknowledge or believe that. She's come from a different generation, and you didn't say that. That's not what she thought you said. You are to let other people adorn you with those things. That was her philosophy. And for years, she said it. She didn't care for it. She didn't like it that I did that. And then I told her, I said, I don't think you ever took into account that I wouldn't always be liked and received well,
Mm.
right? Because she liked and received me well, right? Because she's my mom, she loves me. I said, I don't think you ever took that into account. So me saying that wasn't me being braggy and cocky and arrogant, and I think I'm this. It was me. It was my own way of when I encountered and experienced things that didn't always make me feel the greatest, and always didn't make me feel that I was welcomed or celebrated or loved, whatever the environment was. That was my way of doing, my way of building myself back up.
Yeah.
Wasn't my way of trying to put someone else down. It was my way of building myself back up. So I want parents to think about the ways their child is trying to build themselves back up, and how do you create an environment where that is their norm and not the exception.
Mm. Yeah. When you said that, so if anyone hasn't, I would recommend Kanye's documentary on Netflix, Genius. Kanye's mother, rest in peace to Dr. West, had an instance where she did that, but not to that degree. She's the one who poured the confidence into Kanye, and he has to grow up to be his own man. Who he is now is probably, but she the one who instilled that confidence, and she had the instance where she was like, Kanye, I know when you're out here and you're speaking and doing that and being confident, not bragging, you're not arrogant, you're confident. She made sure to say that. She gave him this, like, I don't know if it's an idiom. She's like, the giant looks into the mirror and sees nothing. She said
Mm.
everybody else around the giant sees him. I think that's something people could take away from it. All right, so being respectful of your time, let's wrap this up. I'm gonna start moving forward from this episode. Moving forward, I'm gonna end every episode with one of these questions, but this one pulled up with my therapist. I want to let you know: do you think every human being on this earth doesn't need, but either should go to therapy? Like, I don't want to say need, not like going to school, but mm,
I'm gonna answer like this. That is for a person to figure out and decide what they need.
okay.
That's for them to figure that out. That is, um, I can't speak for every person in the world. That is that. Oh, that. Now we didn't have to talk about generalities and big spaces.
Oh, okay.
Um,
True enough.
yeah. So I will say that I believe that it is important for people to be in healthy relationship, and I think healthy, supportive, loving, endearing spaces can help people heal and to grow. And I'm gonna say that. That is my
All right,
philosophy.
all right. So this is the last question. I promise you.
Okay, this is the last
Because
question. Okay. All
for
right.
what for what I know is I'm cognizant. I know people aren't gonna watch this and say, "Well, I need to go to therapy now. I got problems and issues, things like this and that nature." So to you, not and you can, but not in the textbook clinical psychologist term. But what is therapy? Because there's too much stigma, especially with us skinfolk, we're going to therapy. Too many ideas. It's a little too taboo, and it's getting better. We know that. Whole reason I got this because I got this podcast because I went. But explain to them exactly what is therapy.
I'm gonna keep and therapy is a place where you go. I'm gonna relate it to medical because unfortunately people see things. They can't see it, they don't believe it. So just like you would go to a physician for your checkup, for check your heart rate, check your blood pressure, check to see if you have any infections. Therapy is the medical portion for your mind.
Hmm.
It is medical care for your mental and psychological health, mental, psychological, and emotional health.
Boom. And ladies and gentlemen, you have that straight from a word from the PhD, a doctorate of
Social work.
social work. Now, thank you again. I appreciate you,
Thank
Doctor.
you. No,
Keep
absolutely.
We gotta keep the title right, Doctor Mays. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And of course, I gotta extend the floor. It's open for you to let people know where they can, if you're doing practice, if you're doing private practice, what is it, what is its name, where they can find you, your social media and your website. Let the people know.
You can find me on Twitter at Akeem716. You can find me there. That is where I am talking, having fun, talking about food, music, culture, laughing with people, and keeping up with the world and what's going on. That's where I go to be a human. I get to be a human
Hmm.
there. And I get to talk about mental health some days, and some days I'm talking about Jay-Z, or some days I'm talking about Drake. You know what I mean? And some days I'm talking about seafood or talking about going to a beach and getting some rest. Right?
Yeah.
I'm a regular person. I'm a great person. I'm an amazing person, but I'm a human, and I like to have fun, and I like to enjoy, and that's where you can catch me to be thinking, and that's where I'm at. Website is coming soon.
Oh, okay, okay.
Website is good.
Well, I'm gonna spin the block, and when you had to get that, I'm gonna make sure to put that and then all the descriptions and the links for people to go. But again, thank you for coming. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. You have a peace and blessings to you, King. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your platform. Thank you for allowing me to talk. Thank you for allowing me to share. We went around, we went around,
Man,
and I'm glad that we were able to do so. I
things
hope
are,
I can come back.
of course, things are predestined and God allowed it to be. And this, I think we had an amazing conversation. This is probably one of the top 3 most fluid conversations I've had on here. I mean, top 4, I would say. And I'm appreciative of your energy. Again, thank
Thank you.
you. Peace and blessings. Hopefully, you have a good day.
You too. All right.